So I'm constantly hearing people say, what's the point of sharpening a $1 kitchen knife with a $100 sharpening stone setup? You go cut a 2x4 for half an hour non-stop. Tell me how you feel. Since the knife will almost immediately go dull the second it comes into contact with the wood cutting board. It doesn't have anything to do with your knife. You're better off using a cheap pull-through style sharpener and not wasting any time messing around with crap go dull fast steel.
Well, you're all about to be proven wrong!
Including me. So I went to the dollar store and bought a couple of $1 kitchen knives. Yes, these are really $1. Okay, maybe $1.25. To answer the question once and for all, is it the knife or the sharpener? Spoiler, it's the crappy sharpener. Let's sharpen one of these bad boys on some of the best sharpening stones on the market and compare that to the cheap pull-through sharpener and some 2x4s. I started with a coarse 400 grit diamond and then went to a 1000 grit Shepton Koromaku and then finished on the 2000 grit Shepton Koromaku. I then stropped on a 6 micron and 3 micron strop for a very nice shaving sharp finished edge. The entire process took me approximately 10 minutes from start to finish. Here's what our edge looks like. A nice, fine, crisp apex with a horizontal scratch pattern. I'll tell you why this is important in a second. And here's what the stock edge looked like, in case you were wondering. Got ourselves a fresh 2x4. We're going to see how long this cuts for till it stops cutting paper. This was the first time I've ever cut through a 2x4 with a hand-sharpened $1 knife. And let me tell you, I severely underestimated how long it would cut for.
"20 minutes later."
I mean, it's still... my battery's dead. But it's still sharp. It's actually still shaving sharp. I'm like super surprised. For everybody who's like, whoa, I take three chops into a cutting board and my knife is dull.
It doesn't have anything to do with your knife.
And for the geeks out there who want to know what the Rockwell hardness is on this knife, 51.5. Now let's try the pull through. And here's the ranting part of the show. Pay no attention to this guy. Before we get started, let's address some mean comments. Haha. Here's some of the mean comments from the last video. Those knife sharpeners are a must for cheap Chinese steel knives. Do not attempt to use your sharpening stones on those cheap crap knives. Here's a cheap $1 crap knife cutting through a 2x4. Please don't mistake a crappy knife sharpener for a crappy knife. Again, same crappy knife and a 2x4. He's using way too much downward force on that knife as he's sharpening the blade. You see, the problem is when you don't use enough pressure, it doesn't do anything. It's not doing anything. Yeah, we're 2 minutes in. We would have this knife sharpened by now on the stone. The sharpening stones are way too slow, aren't they? Well, let's dull the crap out of this knife and see how quickly we can sharpen it. I mean, we kind of took our time, went a little bit slow, but under a minute. A lot of people had concerns about the angle in which the knife was sharpened. This blade here has a curved surface. That means the knife is curved. In order for the knife to remain, in order to maintain contact with the knife sharpener, as you pull it through, you have to angle the knife. That's just the way it is. So now let's test the pull through and see how long it lasts. Oh, this hurts. Someone's gonna say, you dulled it too much. It was too dull. You see, it's not about whether or not this knife sharpener will sharpen, because it does technically sharpen. What's really important is the results that you get from this sharpening. I can cut through this 2x4 with this nail. Or I can just do it with this chop saw. All right. Now, that's about as good as I can get it on this sharpener. Okay, so here's what that edge looks like. We've all seen this before, and as you can see, we've got quite the burr along the apex of this knife. And despite my best efforts, I was not able to minimize this burr any more than what you see here. And that's one of the main problems with these pull-through style sharpeners, is they work in the wrong direction. In order to minimize or reduce the burr / remove the burr, you need to work the burr back and forth in the opposite direction. And a lot of steels, you just cannot remove the burr any other way. Also, as you can see in this picture, the scratch pattern goes in the wrong direction as well. And this makes for a very weak apex because it introduces stress risers into the steel right at the apex. It's much better for the scratch pattern to go vertically rather than horizontally. So why does all this matter? Well, let me show you the difference in edge retention. Not bad. Technically, we did sharpen. The question is, how long will it remain sharp with the burr? So let me jump back in here real quick. What you're seeing there when we are cutting the paper is you're seeing the burr do the cutting. You're not seeing the apex of the knife do the cutting. The apex is hidden underneath that very fragile burr. So if we go ahead and we start cutting something a little bit more difficult, that's where we run into the problems. But slicing paper is no problem for a burr. Doing very delicate tasks can be no problem for a burr. But the idea is that you want to remove the burr and reveal the much tougher apex underneath. So why don't you just drag the knife through a 2x4 to get rid of the burr? So here's our before picture, before dragging it through the 2x4. This is right off the pull through. According to the YouTube comments, this always works. And here's after dragging it through the 2x4. Oh, he didn't do it hard enough. And this is after going harder. And if you look close, you can actually see the little tiny wood pieces pulled off by that really nasty looking burr. You see, that only works if you have wafer thin burrs that look like this. Paper thin burr right on the edge. The problem with our burr off of the pull-through sharpener is that it kind of looks like this. And this does not remove very well, simply swiping it through a 2x4. Oh, I can tell right away it's not nearly as sharp. Oh no. Uh-oh. I mean, we've done, what? I don't know, 50 cuts versus like 500. It's not even close, and we're already starting to see some edge degradation. Maybe we can kind of saw through the paper, but it's definitely not a clean slice like the other one was. See, we kind of have to saw, and then we get hung up. So if we look at the edge after just a little bit of cutting in the 2x4, you can see the problem is that the burr, what was doing the cutting before, is actually sort of bent over in some places and missing in other places, revealing a nice rounded over apex. And for edge retention, this is a giant problem. I think a lot of people, without seeing this with their own eyes, are going to think that it's just crappy steel. But it's not the steel. It's actually the way that it was sharpened. Now, I'm not exaggerating here in the slightest. I actually did this test 3 times. Yes, I did this 2x4 whittling test 3 different times. And I'm here to tell you that the edge retention difference between sharpening on a pull-through sharpener versus sharpening properly is 100 to 1. It's literally 100 times better edge retention sharpening properly on proper stones than it is on a pull-through style sharpener. All of this edge retention advantage is coming from the fact that we are properly removing the burr as well as making sure that our scratch pattern is going in the correct direction. We do not want horizontal scratch patterns along the apex because it significantly weakens the apex and allows that apex to bend over and round over much easier. So here's the real question. Exactly how far can we push this $1 knife? The idea here is that we're gonna cut till we cannot.
Cut no more.
And for those of you who think I'm joking, this is a $1 knife cutting a 2x4 for 35 minutes and still slicing paper and still shaving.
I've created a monster. I've got a blood blister on my hand.
I don't think I can go anymore. My wrists have seen better days. "35 minutes. I was gonna cut through this entire 2x4, but I just don't have it in me. The $1 knife, I think the $1 knife won.